Welcome everybody to What the Heck Does That Mean? Where we have my spiritual ocean, Alisha, who does a little bit of everything. She's a manifestation coach, trauma coach, does EFT tapping, does subliminals, just learned, got certified in emotion code, and you do so much more. Yes, go ahead, take the floor, introduce yourself. How did you get into this? What do you do?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me. I feel like I'm on a TV show.
Who are?
Oh my
This
gosh. What?
is my TV show. What the heck does that mean?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy that I found you in this whole experience because I've learned so much from you. So like you're the one that got me into emotion code. So thank you. So my name is Alisha. Sam just said just about everything I do. That's why my channel is called My Spiritual Ocean. When I first was trying to brand things, I wanted to encompass everything. So I was like, what's more vast and limitless than the ocean? So I went with that. So I got started in my journey experience, whatever you want to call it, about 2.5 years ago. I a lot of times question how this all really started for me because there wasn't like a pinpoint. Like I thought it was one event that happened, but then when I look back, I see how I started to unconsciously start making decisions that really ultimately led to that the event. The event. I'm going to call it the event. So essentially, what really happened is I came to a point where I feel like I had tried everything in life. I was trying to make everyone love me. I was trying to make everybody happy. I didn't really have an identity. My identity was tied to whatever was going on around me at the time or who everyone told me to be. And I really just hit a point where I was literally on the floor. Like, this is how kind of like soul crushed I felt at that time. And I just said, I cannot do it anymore. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I think that was like the ultimate moment of full surrender, which was just letting go of trying to control everything in my life. And when I did that, the answers kind of started coming. And I, truth be told, I really didn't even want to continue on Earth anymore at that point. But something in me said, you know what, you have a little more information now. So let's give this a try and see where it goes. And I'm really glad that I did because after that, it felt like everything just kind of flowed in. So that's kind of my general background story.
Yeah, and it seems like that, a lot of people resonate with that because, you hit the lowest point in your life and you're just like, I'm doing all the things and nothing seems to work. And so then you start going outside the box, and that going outside the box is what usually saves your life. I can relate with you on that. I was at the lowest of the low and I was about to be like, see ya. But I decided I got this feeling as well, like, no, this isn't right. And so it led me into Reiki and then things continued. So
Mhm.
yeah, amazing. So what did you get into first? Because you do a lot of stuff. So what was the first
I
what,
do. So the very
what
first step in my experience was I joined a 12-step program called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And so my growing up, a lot of my community knows my dad was an active alcoholic throughout my childhood. He's been sober for over 17 years now, and I'm absolutely just so proud of him. And you'll see him in my lives. People probably see him around. So he's participated in those. So learning about that program and just taking the opportunity to go to those meetings was helpful for me. It was a start. I immediately honed in on, I think it's like the 12th step or something. They say having had a spiritual awakening. And I was like, spiritual awakening. So I immediately took to Google and I'm like, spiritual awakening. And I looked up spiritual awakening. I'm like, well, hot damn, I'm having a spiritual awakening. Like all the things that were happening. I had some resistance to 12 steps at first because my dad had been in it. And there's almost like that resistance of I don't want to be like my parents. But at the time, like I see how that was also a judgment for myself. So that's really where I started. That's where I learned about generational trauma, PTSD, how growing up in that kind of environment really affects you. And so that's really where I started. And then I'm like, the rest feels like a blur. Like, I knew immediately that I wanted to help other people because that was an old pattern. I wanted to save everybody, but now I just like transferred it to something else. So I really still had to transition out of that and not save myself, I guess, but shift who I wanted to be. And so as I did that, just again, I don't know the order of how things came. I got Reiki attuned at one point. That's when I really learned like the magic of energy, I think, because when I had my attunement, I did the course and then I got my attunement and they said, you don't have to be on a call with anybody, just at this time, sit down, hang out, and let the magic happen. And I'm like, what am I supposed to feel? What's going to happen? Is somebody going to come like lift me up? Am I going to have like, an angel come down to me? Like, I didn't know. Nothing really that wild and crazy happened. But the next day I had a lot of energy moving. I don't really want to go into the details because I don't want to say gross because that's a judgment, but there was energy moving. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's the Reiki. This is energy. And that's kind of where I just started being open to trying new things. So yeah, that's where I started. And now I'm here.
And then you're just like, I've learned everything. And that usually is what happens. You get into something new, like an energy healing modality or something in the spiritual realm. And then you just go down the rabbit hole and you're like, ooh, this looks cool. I'm going to learn this. And then it leads you to that. And you're like, ooh, I'm going to learn this. So you're probably going to be learning like 20 more different styles of energy healing or techniques in your future. So just be prepared for that.
I'm so open. I'm ready for it.
But what I absolutely love is I found you, I think through Brittany, and Brittany's in here, being the end, she was talking about you, and then I went into your live or saw some of your videos. I think it was the end of the spring or the beginning of the summer, and you were one of the first people who were actually talking about like validating your feelings, especially like in the manifestation community. They get emotions and feelings mixed up. And so, when they feel a negative emotion, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bring this in. This is bad. But really, it's something to come up so you can release it. So you were one of the first people who were like, validate your feelings. This is how you release it. And then that's how, I learned about the EFT tapping. I was like, ooh, what's this? Like an easy way to just like, all right, I'm just going to tap this energy right out, So, and completely, and I was going through a very tough time over the summer, and you with, Brittany and a few other people really did help me out of that funk and like help me step into my power. So I'm very grateful for you for that. You helped me in so many ways that I can explain. So
yeah, and I think that's something that was really, as I was going through this experience and navigating it, I first got into law of attraction, where it's very much, and it's still, I kind of noticed a little crossover with law of attraction, law of assumption, where it's your thoughts create your reality. So I was like, oh, good, I just have to change my thoughts, which is part of it. But this is where I feel like people feel stuck, is they start doing the reprogramming of the conscious, but they don't realize that your body is part of your subconscious, and that's where it's the storehouse of everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking all the new thoughts, I'm doing this, but I still feel like something's like missing. And when I started doing nervous system regulation, somatic kind of healing, and bringing the body in, I was like, okay, the mentality and mindset is part of it, but it's not the whole picture. Like if you go in and you start changing your thoughts, yes, that will start changing your behaviors, perhaps changing the way your body responds, but you also have to get them to agree with each other. So wherever you start in the mind, body, spirit connection, they all affect each other. So when I started doing all of that stuff, I was like, things started moving a lot faster and I was feeling better. And I was like, oh, okay. But I realized me just trying to change my mindset was still an old pattern of, hey, I don't want to feel these feelings. I don't know how to do it. So if I don't have to, thank you for the permission. All the other coaches along my way. But then I just felt in a circle, still kind of in a cycle. And so that's something I wanted to bring to the manifestation community. I know other people do talk about it. I didn't see it so much in law of assumption when I had come into it. So I really wanted to say, hey, it's okay it's law of assumption. What you believe to be true is true. So what if I tell you, you don't have to be afraid of your emotions. You can feel how you feel and still get what you want. How does that make you feel? And people are like, relieved? And I'm like, it does, right?
So what kind of techniques do you recommend? Like, especially when people are first starting out, working with their emotions, especially, when they have their mind and their body cut off, there's no connection. So
Mm-hmm.
how would you recommend them slowly easing the connection? Because
Mm-hmm.
that was tough for me. When I was like, all right, let's put them back together. It was like emotion, emotion, emotion. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. What do I do? I pushed them down. So explain kind of some of the things that you do, what you recommend, and all that fun stuff, because it is absolutely amazing how the methods that you do and you teach.
Yeah. So one of the very first techniques that I used that I thought was helpful, that I felt was very awkward at first, was mirror work, talking to myself in the mirror. And at first I was like, what? So I was like, talk to myself in the mirror. But of course, there's kind of that also assumption, like if you're talking to yourself, that there's something wrong with you, right? No, like self-talk is so important. So I started doing that. That was one of the very first things I did. I literally started by writing on my mirror, I am enough, in lipstick. I saw that somewhere and I was like, I'm going to do it. And it's still there. And I'm like, so how, when I clean my mirror, we won't talk about that. But it says I'm enough, and that needs to stay there for now. So that's really where I first started. Even just saying those words in my eyes in the mirror and letting that kind of be. Another technique that I started with was because it really for me did start with self-talk. And another one of the first, I feel like I'm going to be like one of the first things I did for everything, but one of the very early practices I did was taking out a picture of me when I was a child and carrying that around with me to connect with that younger part of myself. And there was something about separating myself as adult me from little tiny me uh, that was that kind of bridged the gap for me. I couldn't just start talking kindly to myself in this adult form because the old programming of like, you're an adult, you should know better, that comes up. And so seeing little me was really helpful. And every day I would take her around and be like, what do you want to do today? And, it sounds however it sounds, but that really helped me. Just talking, it's almost like finding the separation to integrate and reunite yourself. So that was something that was really powerful at first for me as well.
Oh God, I didn't even think of that because, like you said, we're so used to talking negative to ourselves, but when you take your little baby version, it's like you're not going to talk mean to your old version of yourself. That is absolutely amazing. That's
Mm-hmm.
just seeing if anybody had any questions.
Oh,
Yeah, and
yes, I
so
know.
what?
I was like, me, I will just yip and talk and talk and talk. The
Please, no,
Gemini moon.
you can keep talking and talking. This is your platform, and I will interrupt at any time to ask you questions. For years. Okay, so yeah, so could you explain, because I know I really like the concept of self-concept. So if you can definitely explain it, because I think that is also important, in like helping, hello everybody, and helping people
Hi,
with that, especially with like feeling the emotions. What's up?
yes, yes. Okay, self-concept was one of the like key things that I was missing also. And what I believe it boils down to, I wrote notes because sometimes I get a couple of my concepts like intertwined and I'm like, am I saying this right? So for self-concept, there's really like three branches to it. Your self-concept is who you are, but there's different aspects to it. So it's how you view yourself in relation to a specific area of life. So this is all about you. Like self-concept is all you. It's all you. Everything is you. It's also how you view yourself in relation to others, whether on like a specific individual level or as a general group of people or within that area of life. And then it's also how you think other people view you. So it's all of your assumptions in different areas. And that really is the full encapsulation, I believe, of self-concept. It's your I amness. Like who are you? If I ask you, who are you? What are you going to tell me? I am blank. And there's a lot of things that feed into that. The dominant thoughts that you have tell you about who you are, who you're being. Your dominant emotional state, where you return to and dwell, that tells you who you are and who you're being. And all of these things are you can change all of these at any time. Everything starts with a decision. So, and I think that's where I got hung up for a long time, especially when I joined my 12-step program and I read the laundry list. I started bawling, but I was like, wow, someone's just going to have to tolerate me. Like, this is what, and I also at that time didn't see how anyone could love someone like that. That's how I felt at that time. So there was so much harsh judgment on myself. But then there came a point where I learned you can change who you are at any time. Does it always feel easy? No. Is it worth it? Heck yes, it is. It is totally worth it. Yes, I am that I am. Yes,
I
yes.
am that. That's one cheeky trick.
Yeah.
So how would you go, like, how did you start changing it? What are some ways that if someone was like, okay, well, how do I identify some of the things that are limiting me or things that are part of my self-concept that aren't good or that don't resonate with me or don't help me out?
Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest ways I think you can do is seeing patterns in your life, picking an area of life first, perhaps that you feel you want to shift or experience things differently, and seeing if there's patterns in that with the people you meet, the types of the way you're showing up, the way you're reacting. Most of us react instead of respond, but we come to respond instead of react as we transfer these things, validate our feelings, release the emotions. So definitely looking for patterns in life. You can also pick an area of life or pick whatever it is you want to experience and ask yourself, why don't I have that right now? And write down all the reasons. And that's exactly why you don't have it, because of all those limitations. So you can take those and flip them. Now, again, there's so much nuance to all of this. It is simple. It takes practice. There's ins and outs to it all, but that's kind of the most simplified version, I would say. Patterns are going to be the biggest thing to look for throughout your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Those are the biggest ones. And then, so if there were, how do I want to word this? If there were, if if there weren't any patterns at all, but like for me, let's say like my biggest thing I would probably say, oh my gosh, is with my body losing weight and becoming looking like an Amazon woman. Like there weren't really like I know the patterns were certain things, but then there and I've been working on it, but there is some other stuff that I think have to do with it, but I'm not sure. So how would I go about uncovering that as an example?
So my recommendation there or suggestion, and everything that I talk about here is a suggestion because everyone's so different. So my way is not the only way. I just want to share that with everybody. These are just the things I've learned. So you may experience things differently. So just as a little caveat to everybody. But one of the, it's interesting because body image is something that's been a huge thing throughout my life. And one of the things that really helped me was looking back at, if there wasn't patterns, looking at what I was taught about my body and body image in general from growing up. What messages did I get? What was I constantly told? Or if I wasn't told it, what was I observing? How was I seeing the people I love and cared about? How were they talking about themselves? What were they saying to each other and about each other? Also exploring the general messages in society about different things, body image, what kinds of commercials are you seeing? What headlines are they putting about your favorite stars? And then really just looking at that and becoming curious about it and noticing those things. Now, I like doing it that way because to me, it's when you identify what it is that you want, you can just focus on that directly and that will come to fruition. But I also really believe in deconstruction. And for some reason, looking at the things you've experienced, looking at the beliefs that have been put on around you when you were younger, deconstructing those, it just helps the ego mind like understand. For me, that's the logic. We're not all spiritual, we're not all logical, we're a blend of it, right? So that to me was helpful. And it's also part of kind of cultivating your soil and pulling out, I talk about like pulling out the weeds before you plant your flowers. Because if you plant your flowers, but the weeds are choking out the flower bulbs, the flowers aren't going to flower. It's going to be still the weeds overrun. So really looking down at those kinds of core beliefs. And also, I believe in transitioning your thoughts. So becoming mindful of the things that you're thinking, also becoming aware of how your body responds in different things. That was a very big thing in deconstructing. I personally had like what I call a food addiction. So that was something that I did, and it can go really, either way. And that's something I've learned too is, I've hated my body my whole life until the last couple of years because I've been learning to love it. But there are people who have bodies that are a lot smaller than mine that have the same core belief systems. And it's like, wow, it really shows you it's not about how you look. It's not like everybody has fed into some kind of belief system that we're being given. So did I answer your question?
Because and I'm going to share a story because I recently discovered this over the weekend because I was just like, I love working out and I love my body. And it was like at its prime over the summer. And then all of a sudden my birthday hit. My birthday was November 2nd. And all of a sudden I gained a bunch of weight. I don't know where it came from. And I was like, well, I can't blame it on the holidays and I would be cool with that because, I enjoy myself during the holidays. I have no problem with it, but it just didn't make any sense. And then I was like, okay, not going to worry about it. And then after the holidays, back to working out and everything, and I just can't seem to lose the weight. So I was like, all right, what's going on? Because I keep telling myself, I'm a fat burning machine, it's easy to lose weight. I was like, there's something else. So after doing a little digging, I was just, sitting with myself. I was like, okay, what about this situation is bothering me? And I kept going and going. And I realized it had to do with my age because I turned 35. 35, based on what you were explaining, has a lot of, with women, that's society says, you can't have children. After 35, you can't have, I believe in that. But, I had like, okay, well, technically, according to society, I'm old. Who's going to want to be with me because I'm 35? And so it's kind of like I'm old. So what happens when you're old? Your body doesn't work the same way. Your metabolism slows down. So really my core belief had to do with now that I'm 35, I'm unlovable. So why try? No one would want to be with me. So why even try to look good? And I was like, well, holy moly, like, holy shit, I cannot believe that's the reason. And so when I discovered that, and I was laughing, and of course I was bawling my eyes out because when I realized I picked up, oh, I'm unlovable now, I started crying, but it was like a good relief cry. And so once I discovered that, ever since then, I feel much better and I'm noticing changes. I'm like killing it at the gym. So it's even like something small, like a belief that you have, but it doesn't come into play until, you reach that point, so that age. So huge limiting belief. I was just waiting. It was just waiting.
It was like, it's my time to shine.
Right. And it was overnight, literally overnight. And my body just changed. And I was just like, what and so, yeah, sometimes they're just creeping on you and they're waiting. And so sometimes every once in a while, like you have to do a little check-in and be like, okay, what's going on?
And I really love what you said there. That's exactly it too, is when something's going on is to ask yourself why it bothers you. Why? And you keep asking why until you get to the core. Because usually what's going on, like the actual environment, is not what the problem is. There's something underneath it. And I just remember having like scenarios with people in the past where something was happening and I was telling myself, I'm like, it's not about this. it's not about this. And I didn't understand that at the time, but I'm like, I know it's not about like, because, you know, people be like, oh, it's about, you know, this is over $5. Just an example, like, oh, this is about $5. I'm like, it's not about $5. There's something underneath the $5. What about, you know, whatever was going on? Like, what is that triggering or bringing up in me that this bothers me? So I love that you said that. Why does this bother me? And just, yeah, reverse psychologying it.
And I think I got that from you from over the summer. You're like, just ask why. Why do I feel this way? And I actually was just like, I would do it every once in a while when I get like really angry. Be like, all right, why does this bother me? Oh, okay, and move on. But then something where it's like I couldn't, I literally had to sit down and like almost meditate and be like, why does this bother me? Could it be this? Could it be that? And I just kept asking. And like you said, the subconscious mind's not hiding anything from you. You just have to ask the right questions. And it was like, boom, you're on because you're 35 now. And I'm just like, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not right. Yeah, that's right. That's it. You know?
Yes. And it's interesting to observe that with people around me. And I think that like when I had my gray hair grow out, like I didn't really care about that. And, you know, people were complimenting it and they're like, oh my gosh, where'd you get that done? Because gray hair was the popular thing. I don't know if it still is, but it was like there were people with gray hair that they were older than me and they were like, well, I could never do that. And they were talking about why they couldn't do it. And like you could see the fear of gray hair and what that meant to them. And that's what it is. It's about what things mean to you. You're the only one giving meaning to things in your experience. People can come from the exact same environment and have different experiences or be completely different people because it's what the meaning that they internalized in it. So it's like really just interesting because I'm like, who cares about your gray hair? But I mean, not to be like, who cares? But to me, I'm like, I don't understand. But to them, it represented something. It wasn't the gray hair.
And it's just a color. And like I had, well, after I turned 35, I started coloring my hair, but I had like strips of gray right here. And that's where it is. And it kind of reminds me of Rogue from the X-Men, you know? So I was like, ooh, I'm a superhero. But you know, then the 35 thing, I was like, yeah, maybe I will color it. So I did. But really, before then, it never bothered me. It never bothered me. I was like, it's color.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. Like now sometimes I go into these like philosophical kind of modes and I'm like, that never bothered me before. Why is it now? Like it's super fascinating. Look, it's the lipstick on the mirror. Just keep telling yourself, yes. It's that Neville Goddard. He's one of the great laws. Well, he uses assumption and attraction. That's probably why people call it law of attraction still sometimes and use his works. But really he says, you know, if you're trying to change your environment out here, that's like going to the mirror and breaking it or trying to tell the mirror to change when all you have to do is change your face. And then the reflection will give that back to you instead of changing the reflection directly on the mirror. So it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's so funny because, you know, we all know this. We all like, we're aware of it. We know the tools, but then sometimes it's like we give into, you know, what's going on in our life. We got to play around with it. We got to change it. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Hold it. We tend to forget and be like, okay, time out. Let's go within what's going on. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. Hey, look, I still sometimes get upset with what's going on out here, and I will still sometimes blame here and rage out here. Well, not to the outside, but, you know, to release it now. But my intention now is to release it and not to keep myself stuck in a cycle or a story. So, it looks like a question came in here.
Really quick. So, a joyful heart. Have you ever had an emotion be from someone else, like an empathic thing?
So I used to identify myself as an empath. What I realized for me, what that meant was that I would take on everyone's emotions. And why would I do that? I didn't want them to hurt the way that I did. And it was something that was conditioned in me from childhood of if I can just make everyone feel better, it was a control thing. Like if I can just take that from them, if I can just do this, it was like an unconscious way of me trying to like prove myself. And hold everyone's pain. And I ultimately think that's really what kind of gave me that soul crush when I hit that kind of rock bottom, is I was taking care of everyone else, but not myself. So I was taking on all these emotions. I didn't know what the heck to do. I couldn't even do them with mine. So I'm like, what am I going to do with everyone else's? So what I learned for me is really learning. So I also had an assumption and a belief that what empathy was is taking on everyone's emotions, making them feel better. And what I've learned is true empathy is holding space for that emotion. And so I had to learn to do that with myself. So first, before I could do it for other people, because all I wanted to do was like make everyone feel better. I feel like, oh, don't cry. But the only reason I said that is because I'm like, that really makes me uncomfortable and I don't know what to do. Don't cry. Don't cry. So exactly. I started practicing energetic boundaries, learning that I'm in charge of my energy and my energy only, and also trusting that people can handle that, their emotions themselves. I didn't have trust in people to be able to do that for themselves. There was so many, again, nuances to like that I see now behind why I made that decision for myself. Like that's where I got my value. People would come to me. I felt needed. It felt like, you know, I had this like strong, this need to be needed. And if nobody needed me, then I didn't have any worth. And so it was like a whole, I did a whole, there is no stone left unturned in here. But yeah, so I have over my lifetime, I have experienced that, taking that on. And what I started doing to set those energetic boundaries, oh, I love the heart hands. Yay. Was one of my favorite affirmations because at first when I was trying to discern what energy is mine, what somebody else's, I would tell myself, I would stop if I noticed and I was confused, and I would say, I disconnect from any energy that does not belong to me. And sometimes like right away, instantaneously, like I came right back into my body and that sensation or whatever just left. And then if it didn't, I'm like, okay, this is mine. So that's one way I started to practice learning that and doing that for myself.
And I think a lot of people, especially, you know, like what you were saying, you don't want people to feel that because you felt it and you're just like, oh, I want to away from people just to help them. But, you know, people are given things, they're not just, we're taking away their healing. You're not given anything that you can't handle. By us taking it away, we're taking away from their healing. And also, you know, I've had a number of people ask me, well, because I say, if you feel like you have someone else's emotions, just say like return to sender, return to whoever this is. It's like, well, isn't that mean? Because you're giving them their negative energy back. And then I would say, you know, you're taking away from their healing. And I forgot what I was going to say, but so it's really, you're doing them a disservice if you're holding on to it, you know, and it's okay to give it back. Hold space for them, there with them, but don't take it with you. Don't take the.
And you know, if it makes you feel better too, because really what I've learned is intention is everything, right? So if you know, it's not yours to carry, you can return it back and set the intention with it. They're going to know and understand exactly how to process this in a way that benefits them or frees them from it or something like that, because that's going to push that experience out for them too, in whatever form it shows up for them. So sometimes that might make it feel better to send it back, is that I trust them. They're going to find the way. They're going to have the answer. They're going to know. They're going to know how to handle this in a beneficial way.
Yeah. And to protect yourself, I always go back to, you know, Reiki. You can't receive Reiki unless you consent to it, unless you're open. And so that's the same thing with all kinds of different energies, is that if you keep saying, oh, everyone's energy, I always like suck in people's energy, or I always take on their emotions, you're allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you say, nope, I close that, I don't allow that to happen, because you're in control of your energy and what goes in and out, then you won't be able to be a sponge for other people's emotions. And sometimes it does take practice, you know, to build that confidence. But yeah, you're in control of everything.
Yeah. And when it comes to law of assumption, I mean, at the very basic level, law of assumption, which is one of the concepts that I teach or talk about, is that what you believe to be true will be true. So if you believe that other people can affect your energy, they're going to be able to affect your energy. So I started having an affirmation that said, I'm the only one who can say what's done with my energy. No one's allowed into my energy without my permission. That gives me the power of what's going on around me. So if you have a belief that people can affect you, or they can, send you, send you hexes or curses, or there's negative entities, you're going to experience that, because that's the experience your subconscious is going to make real for you. And this is why every single person's experience is valid, because everyone's experiencing things in their reality in a way that feels real for them. And so whether or not you agree or disagree with somebody, or their belief system or aligns with your values or not, their reality and experience is real. And that's something that I've really learned too, is that when I talk about validating, I think a lot of people think that when I talk about validation, it means you're saying that what they're saying is okay, or that you're condoning it. But really, validating to me is saying, I understand and I'm holding space for this, not I agree or disagree. You can validate without having an opinion on it. You can just understand. So that's why I think people get hung up on validating. They're like, oh, but you're accepting it as truth. Well, not so much. It's saying, hey, this is real right now. Yes, it is valid. I am experiencing this. And then we transition to what we want after we validate. That's how I found was the path of least resistance.
So Callie Girl said, how do you say it again? I release my energy that isn't mine. You can say whatever feels good to you.
Yes.
I say turn to sender, or none of mine, like send it back. Like, you can't come here. It's really whatever resonates with you. It's all about intention.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that's a thing to know about affirmations too, is people sometimes they're asking people specifically what affirmations they use. It's important to use language that feels good for you, because again, different words can mean different things to different people. Like what success means to me might be different to what success means to you. So you want to use language that resonates for you and that your mind will understand. Because then if you try to use other language, you got to try to teach your mind that. And it's like, no, we already have enough language that we can use that fits.
I'm laughing at Stacy. Can't touch this.
There you go. See? Subconscious mind knows.
And that's what I do. And I think that's kind of because I'm afraid of ghosts, and knowing that like I'm in charge has helped me not be so afraid. Like I'll be in my room and maybe like I'll see something in the corner of my eye, or I'll hear something and I know it's not my cat. You're like, please leave. This is my house. Get out of here. Now, this does not mean I'm going to go into a haunted house, and be like, ooh, I'm in charge here. Absolutely not. But it just helps knowing that, you're in control of your energy. You can decide what comes and goes, and it actually gives you peace of mind, and it actually gives you more power and confidence, and you feel warm and fuzzy and safe. That's how I can. Mm-hmm. So what more about, I walk around in the dark now, and if I got to go to the bathroom, I walk around in the dark now. Well, girl, that is that. Okay, I can't do that. I can't walk around in the dark. Okay, that's my limit. I need to see what's going on.
I used to be so afraid of the dark, and now, well, I guess it kind of depends. But I think the difference is like, it depends. Like if I'm in my house in the dark, I don't feel afraid, but I know where everything is in my house. I know what it is. I know what to expect. And that's the thing, is it's like the fear of the dark is the fear of the unexpected. So I can be in the dark in a place that I know, but probably if I'm in the dark in a place I don't know, It probably depends on the day, honestly.
Yeah. And I don't do basements either. No. But other than that, I'm in control of my energy. No. So how did you release that I'm unlevel because of my age thing? So what I did was I brought in evidence to prove that is wrong. So I was thinking, so I always go to the solution part, all right, well, because of my age, well, look at like Gwen Stefani. She was able to find love when she was in her late 40s, and she had a baby I think she was in her 50s when she had a baby, late 40s, early 50s. she had a baby. I was like, even Jennifer Lopez, and I know Jennifer Lopez doesn't really have there's things about her, nobody really likes her, and I'm not really sure why, but she was able to find love, Cameron Diaz. And then I was like, okay, well, that's for celebrities. Now I have to move into people in my life. There was one of my friends, she's in her 40s, and she found the love of her life. I know people who are close to the 40s and have had kids. So it's kind of like I was giving my subconscious mind evidence to prove that that belief was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Janet Jackson. Yeah. Yeah. So just things like that. And then with like the baby thing, there's so many, like there was this woman who was in her 60s and she gave birth to a kid. And I'm like, okay, well, there we go. I got 25 years if I want to have a kid. So I just did things like that. And I'm what are you guys saying? Hold on, I'm rewinding.
A mermaid. Look, someone had a baby at 43. Look at this.
Yeah, had a baby at 43. Have a good one, Daryl. So it's just giving yourself evidence
Mm-hmm.
to it isn't true. And then I started complimenting to myself. I was like, what are some things that I love about myself? Yeah, I'm 35, but I don't feel old. I wear a banana cat. Like I'm a people always ask me what I'm training for at the gym because and they tell me I'm a badass. I'm like life. I'm fun. I'm fun to be around. I have an amazing personality. I love learning, so I was like, there's a lot about me that is lovable. And if, you know, it's other people's loss if they don't, if based on my age, they're like, oh, you're too old, unavailable. Well, it sucks for them. They just lost out on a catch. So
Yeah,
just,
they did. Yeah,
yeah.
they did.
So,
Yeah. And
um,
I like that you're talking about finding evidence because if it can happen, we're all connected. We're all from the same universal source, God, life force, energy, whatever you want to call it. The language doesn't matter, however it resonates for you. So if one person has done that, that's showing you what you have within you. That's reflecting something available to you. I do have this phrase though, because sometimes people will say, well, I don't really have evidence. I can't find anything. If you try to find something, you will find it. But I say, if you don't have evidence of somebody else who has done the same thing that you want to do, be the first. Someone was always the first. It's like, but there's also, are you willing to be the first? Are you willing to believe in yourself enough that you can be the first? Because the first step is willingness. If you're willing to believe it, you will come to believe it. If you're not willing yet, that's okay. Just tell yourself you're willing to be willing.
yeah, baby steps.
No step is too small, friends. Yeah, once you face your fears, it's like a new superpower. Your fears are the way. The things you fear most that's where you want the direction you want to head. Now, I'm not talking about like if you're in real life and there's like a jaguar and you're like, I'm afraid of the jaguar. Like, don't touch the jaguar. Okay, don't go to the jaguar.
Don't hug the bear.
The things that don't pose a real physical threat to your actual life, that's where you want to start looking. Those are the things that are going to repeat in your life in different ways. And this is how and why people will say, I date the same person with a different face, because it's not about the person, right? What's being reflected back to you? What patterns, what beliefs about yourself? How are you showing up when that person shows up? That's all telling you about yourself. One of the greatest concepts in law of assumption that really helped me was everyone is you pushed out. Everyone is reflecting you in some way, and you can choose to accept what they have to say as truth, or you can hear it, know it's reflecting you, and reject it and say, no. And that's how you really start transforming too. Start observing how people are showing up in your experience. How are you responding to that? Really just starting to become the observer is really powerful.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's a process to get to that point. But the willingness to observe, hey.
Yeah, that in itself, you're right, is a practice. You know, especially I used to be very short tempered, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna observe my anger, and I would go from like 0 to pissed off, and then like give into it, and then afterwards I'd be like, okay, I need to do better. But yeah, it is a practice, and let's see what is. I found my love online when I was 50. When the right one is ready for you. Oh, see, more
See?
evidence, more evidence.
There's so much evidence of all, especially with love. Like there's somebody who has, found the love of their life at like 70. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, really.
right.
There's no limitation. If you want to experience it, you can experience it. It's deconstructing the limitations that say we can't. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's just so silly how these limiting beliefs just creep up on you, and you're just like, oh right, yeah, I I feel
Yep.
you.
I still uncovered things every day. I uncover new things. And it's
Oh yeah,
like, yeah, it's like, oh, didn't know that was there, but glad I see it now. Thanks. Thanks, mind.
yeah, like little things. I'll be like, I'm like, what? Oh, what did they just say? And then I'm like, hold on, wait a second. Why does this bother me? Is it even a like? Do I even need to be bothered by it? No, but maybe I'm just. If you believe in the full moon, I mean, it was a full moon. You know, I like a little easy in my life, so around that time, you know, maybe I'm a little sassy, and maybe things happen in my life, and I give into it. But that's just a belief, and I like a little crazy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, unicorn butt sparkles. Oh my gosh, I gave up on finding someone that I got in a Call of Duty lobby, and the rest is history. I love your story.
There you go. There's so many, like, yeah, anyway, it's just like there's so many stories. Then everything happens in your experience in a way that's logical to you, but you can't like anticipate how that's going to happen. Like there's this illusion of control. Like even so in law of assumption, they say we don't control the how or the when. You don't have to let go of your desire. You don't have to let go of the outcome you want. You can have things exactly as you want as you're willing to, if you're willing to persist in the assumption that it's yours already. But the how and when, that's not up to you. The sooner you can convince your mind it's yours, then it things feel like they move a lot faster. Um, but so sometimes what people do is they try to manifest the how. You'd be surprised how many people are focused on the how. Like weight loss. Weight loss is usually a how. Money is a how. Like there's a lot of like it's interesting. So even if you're trying to manifest the how, like there's still the illusion of control because you still don't manifest how the how happens. So you're never fully like it's the illusion of control and it's like, oh my gosh.
And that's the hardest. And for me, I catch myself doing the how all the time. I was like, maybe I'll do it this way or this way. I'm like, no, stop it, knock it off, you know, just stop. And it's so difficult. It's like, that's like the hardest thing. That was the hardest thing for me to get over was when and how.
Yes, yes. I know. I find myself routinely being like, wait a minute, that's a how. What are you doing?
Right. It's like,
But hey, again, you can manifest in steps if you want, but you still don't have full control.
right.
That's an illusion. You have the control in your mind by directing your thoughts, validating yourself, allowing yourself to be human. Please let yourself be human. This is, the part of spiritual. Like everyone wants, not I don't want to say everyone wants to be so spiritual, but there's like I think about spirituality and how I kind of like came into it and how when I learned about imagination creates your reality, and like kind of that's just the simplest way of saying it, is that I was like, oh, I'm just going to live in my imagination. Well, guess what? I was still bypassing. But look at that pattern because now when you talk about chakras and stuff like that. So people who've experienced trauma or who aren't comfortable feeling their emotions or know how to do that, they automatically like think when you're triggered, what happens? You flee your body because you don't feel safe. You're overthinking, you're like ruminating. So you're already fleeing your body. So the skill isn't to be more spiritual, whatever that means to people. I feel like the skill is to ground this down into your experience. So that's why people live in their imagination And I'm trying to bridge that gap between, yes, you live in your imagination, but also having the skills to interact with your 3D world, because part of manifestation is embodiment. So sometimes, yes, imagining yourself a certain way can inspire you to take new action, but you also have to do that. And do you have to do all those things to get your manifestation? No. But in my mind, it's like every minute that I don't physically have my manifestation is a moment and an opportunity for me to practice and solidify who I am, so that when it arrives, I have no doubt. And and I know how to handle it, and I don't have to go in cycles of it coming and going. And when you get that hot and cold self concept, so it comes and goes and comes and goes, and you're in that cycle. So I really just view it now as, this is opportunity to keep practicing the new skills. Who do I want to be? I want to be someone who's unconditionally loving. So I give that to myself first, and it's easier for me to do that for other people. So I don't even know where I got on that, but thanks for letting me tangent myself as usual.
I got goosebumps. I was like, yes, preach it, girl. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity. And also, I like, for the most part, everything's neutral. And we put whether it's good or bad. And, a lot of times when we see something, like if we go back to when we discovered spirituality, like to me, in the worst moment of my life at the time, I thought it was bad. It was the worst moment of my life. Looking back at it, I was like, that was actually the best moment of my life, because that was what I needed to happen in order to push me in this direction and overcome my PTSD, find Reiki, and meet people and and have this amazing community.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think something that's like, missing sometimes when talking about manifestation and concepts like these too, is that everything within it is a process in itself. Like the main concepts, it's like let go, right? You're letting go of the old version of yourself, letting go of the old story of yourself, of other people. If you choose to, you don't have to do that, but at least the belief system within that realm. But like trusting the process, just trust the process. Well, that's a learning process to come to trust. You come to trust, you come to let go. Like all these things happen. Like, it sounds simple. It is simple in principle, but doesn't always feel easy. You're learning new things. Trusting the process is really trusting in your power. That's what trusting the process is. So you learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust in things. I was thinking of all those kinds of things where like, oh, just do this. And it's like, well, I would love to, but you have to train yourself. You're basically retraining yourself.
Mm-hmm. So someone asked how to embody loving yourself.
Okay, so what I did, this is a practice that I teach and talk about a lot, and that is whatever it is that you are manifesting or that you want to experience with somebody else, write that down. Okay, because when I think love, I think of like, what is it that you want to experience with someone else? So if you want great communication, okay, how can you start communicating with yourself? Maybe journaling, starting to listen to your body, starting to observe your thoughts, that's communication, right? That all starts within. If you want commitment, how are you committing to yourself? If you want to be a priority in life, how are you prioritizing yourself? So to me, it's really, what does loving yourself mean to you? Because again, that's different for everybody. Some people, self-care and self-love, I think kind of self-care is a branch of self-love. But really just to me, truly embodying loving yourself is holding space for your feelings, validating how you feel, allowing it to flow out, telling yourself you love and accept yourself no matter how you're feeling, and then shifting your story to what you want that to be. So it's all a transition process, because if you immediately go from I'm unlovable and you start saying I am lovable, your mind's gonna be like, yeah, right, in your dreams, here's all the reasons why you're not. So if you say right now, and I like to use the words right now because that's all that there is right now. Right now I feel unlovable. even though I feel this way, I love and accept myself. Sometimes I'll tap on that too, because we didn't really talk much about tapping, but tapping neutralizes your statements. So you can use negative or positive statements. You want to transition to positive, but that's going to neutralize those statements. So even though I feel this way, I love and accept myself. I'm willing to believe this. You can even start with I'm willing to believe this, but I know I get more and more lovable every day. And you're going to start finding that evidence, and those old belief systems are going to stop coming back so strongly. But if you immediately try to like counteract it, depending how deep that belief system is, it doesn't work that great. So that, I don't know if that answers the question, but just really showing up for yourself the way that you want others to show up for you, and deciding what that means, because again, everything means different things to everybody.
Mm-hmm. So could you go over what EFT tapping is and how to do it?
Yes. So EFT tapping is the emotional freedom technique. And what it is you tap on different meridian points in a sequence. Now, if you go to like a tapping session, you will experience that most likely, but even EFT practitioners do it differently. Like you'll see some people tap on both sides, some cycle around. But you basically tap on the meridian points. And what it's doing is, as you're saying, you don't even have to say an affirmation if you don't want to, but if you choose to use affirmations, it's neutralizing that. So if I sit here and I have a lot of resistance to, like, people think that negative affirmations are what we have resistance to, but we actually have quite a bit of resistance to positive affirmations a lot of time also. Yeah. So if I sit here and I say, and this is also like, to me, a form of facing your fears. So let's say I'm afraid of ghosts. I don't know anybody who's afraid of ghosts, but I would start with my, karate chop point here. This is how I do it. Again, people do it differently. And I would say, even though I am afraid of ghosts, I still love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of ghosts, I love and honor myself. Even though I'm afraid of ghosts, I accept myself wholly and completely, body, mind, and soul. I can't remember all the words. They're all different. They vary. And I would tap here and say, I'm really afraid of ghosts.
Really afraid of ghosts. Yeah.
Ghosts scare the F out of me. Ghosts are probably going to come and get me tonight. I don't know how to, and sometimes when you're tapping, you actually will find what the limitation is too. Now, this is just ghost, but you could do this for anything, right? And I'll be like, I don't know how to fight ghosts. The ghosts are more powerful than me. But someone just taught me that. I'm not actually afraid of ghosts. When you tap under here, you say, ghosts have no power over me.
No power over me.
Ghosts are actually my friends.
Ghosts are my friends.
Ghosts can help me achieve my dreams. I'm totally just going off the cuff here.
Ghosts totally can help me with my dreams. Love it, this.
Ghosts love me so much.
Ghosts love me so much.
And I love ghosts even more.
I love ghosts even more.
So I let go of my fear of ghosts.
So I let go of my fear of ghosts.
Because I know ghosts are my friends.
Because I know ghosts are my friends.
And we make the best team together.
Oh, and we make the best team together.
And I'm willing to accept this truth.
And I'm willing to accept this truth.
Body, mind, and soul.
Body, mind, and soul.
And then you take a deep breath and breathe out. And how do you feel now that we've tapped on ghosts?
Good, but now nervous that they're all going to be like, hey, girl, what's up? What you doing later?
But they're someone else. Okay.
Becca said you should do a love one of those sessions instead of ghosts. Well, is it cool if we go to a love one?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on, because I didn't have a script prepared. But I guess I'll just go. I will see. Now my ego mind's like, oh my gosh, what if you say the wrong things? No, we're gonna do this. Let's do. Okay, for love. Okay.
Now is it love for you or is it love from other?
Love
Love
yourself.
your
Someone said to love yourself. Okay. Let's do self-love. I love that. Okay. So we'll tap on the karate chop point here. And I'll say, even though I don't feel like I love myself right now,
even though I feel like I don't love myself right now,
I choose to love and accept myself.
I choose to love and accept myself.
Even though I have felt so unlovable in the past,
Even though I felt so unlovable in the past,
I choose to love and honor myself.
I choose to love and honor myself.
Even though I feel like the most unlovable person in the world right now,
Even though I feel like the most unlovable person right now,
I choose to love and accept myself
I choose to love and accept myself
and anyone else that may be connected to this.
and anyone else who may be connected to this.
Yeah, that was the clicker line I missed on the ghosts. Okay. I can't believe I'm so unlovable.
Can't believe I'm so unlovable.
How could anyone possibly love me?
Can anyone possibly love me?
There is so much wrong with me.
There's so much wrong with me.
I'm so difficult to love.
I'm so difficult to love.
But that's not true.
But that's not true.
I was just taught I'm unlovable
I was just taught I'm unlovable
by people who probably didn't love themselves.
by people who probably didn't love themselves.
The truth is, I'm super lovable.
The truth is, I'm super lovable.
There are so many things to love about me.
There are so many things to love about me.
I love who I am as a person.
I love who I am as a person.
I add so much value to everyone else and to this earth.
I add so much value to everyone else and this earth.
Just my sheer existence makes me lovable.
Just my sheer existence makes me lovable.
I don't have to do anything for people to love me.
I don't have to do anything for anybody to love. Well, wait. I don't have to do anything for anybody to love me. Is that right? Did I say that right? Sorry, guys.
I don't even remember what I said. It's okay.
I'm
Because
amazing.
I'm just, oh, go ahead.
Oh, just like I didn't. I wanted to make sure it's like I'm lovable. I'm amazing. Just to add.
Because I'm just that lovable.
I'm just that lovable.
So I allow myself to feel lovable.
So I allow myself to feel lovable.
And I accept the truth that I am lovable.
And I accept the truth that I am lovable.
In body, mind, and soul.
Body, mind, and soul.
And now take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And check in how you feel. It looks like we had some emotional release. So when you do EFT tapping, you may experience emotional release. So that's part of the neutralizing of the process. Okay. Some of these things too are things that you probably didn't hear and needed to hear. And so this is where my give it to yourself, I don't know, I call it give it to yourself method. That sounds however it sounds. You start giving yourself the things that you needed in childhood. They also call this reparenting yourself in different ways if you go with the inner child parenting dynamic. But when you do EFT tapping, you are shifting energy. So you're going to want to make sure that you drink water, drink extra water. You might feel a little tired after. I had to stop doing EFT tapping videos on my YouTube channel for a while because I was like, wow, okay. I was like, all right, we're going to take a break from this. So, and if you do like EFT tapping, I do have videos on my YouTube channel. I have subliminal affirmations on there too for all different things, self-concept, money, loving your body. Oh, look at the little porcupine. How cute. Oh, he's a hedgehog. Oh, sorry, hedgehog. Don't want to mix up his who he is. So yeah, so that's EFT tapping. And you can just use, I tell people on my YouTube channel, if you look at the videos and there's not a video for what you want on there, you can turn me down on the video and just watch the tapping sequence if you'd like, and use your own affirmations. Whatever comes to you. So I just did it off the cuff there. I saw Sam, I saw you switch sides. I sometimes do that and sometimes don't. My mind was trying to think of affirmations. So I was like, oh God, I didn't switch.
I just went where I felt like I didn't even realize I just moved.
And again, you can do both at once. You can tap. Some people do it this way. Whatever works for you. There is no right or wrong way to do things. And I think that's kind of shows a belief. If you think there's a right way and you're like very focused on, am I doing this right? That shows you a belief within yourself that you could do something wrong or that you don't trust yourself. But that's just assume you're doing it right and it's working, and let it work its magic, because you're the power. You're the power behind everything. All of it.
Yeah.
And
you are the magic.
If that affirmation scares you, take a deep breath. You're coming into your power. It's okay.
Yeah.
Normal to burp and yawn. Yes. Yep. Burping, yawning, out the other end.
Any end. Any.
That's energy moving, my friends.
So yeah, and I even did some of your EFT tappings that you had on your YouTube, and I think it was the self-love one that you had. It was something about self, and I'm like going through it, and I started crying. I'm like, I'm okay. I wasn't expecting, because I never really did EFT tapping, so I didn't really know what to expect. So as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, hello, this is incredible, and it's so simple, and I couldn't believe how simple it is, but it just helped me release so much stuff.
Yep. Even if you're simply, again, like something, if you're just learning how to validate your emotions and regulate your nervous system, and you're starting to observe your triggers and being willing to notice the triggers, if you feel triggered in a moment, you can even just like tap. Well, sometimes I just hold my heart to my chest, or hands to my heart. And you can tap and just say, even though I feel triggered right now, I love and accept myself. I know this isn't going to last, even though I feel triggered, because that's going to move the energy around. Again, you don't even have to say an affirmation if you don't want to. You can just tap. Sometimes you don't have to get hung up on, am I tapping just start tapping on your chest, if anything, or tapping here or in one spot. It's a really powerful tool to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, especially if you don't know the reason why you're feeling a certain emotion, or you're just angry or you're sad, and no matter what you do, it's just not working. Just tap it out, and you don't have to say anything. Just, I'm releasing this. I release and let this go. I release and let whatever you need to say. There's no right. I think, like you were saying, we overthink too much. Like, oh, it has to be done a certain way in order for it to work. But really, it's all about intention.
Yes. I'm laughing because that's when I was getting my emotion code certification. I remember I messaged you because I saw the way Sam was doing her muscle testing, and I was like, I have to do it that way. And so I was like trying, and I'm like, I can't do this. That's that. And I like went on hiatus from the course for a while but there's so many muscle testing options. And I was like, I have to do it like Sam. If I don't do it like Sam, then I'm not doing it right. But look, there's all the stories of me comparing myself to people. And then I don't know what it was. I started watching I was like, I'll start watching again. And I saw whatever the guy was doing in the example. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I did it once. I was like, oh, this is the one. But it was just, the mind was so latched on. I'm like, Sam does it this way, must do it the way Sam does it. And it's like, no, it's okay. She's wonderful. It works for her, but it did not work for me. And that's okay.
And when you're learning muscle testing, it's normal to rage quit. I've rage quit so many times. Like, muscle testing, I was like, I'm done.
When you told me that, I was like, there's those moments where when somebody shares something, like you're like, oh, thank goodness they did that too. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel bad they had to go through that too. But it's also like a moment of validation of like, okay, well, I'm not the only one. And that's another limiting belief most people have is I'm the only one experiencing this. Everything's so easy for everyone else. And I'm the one that's like, again, when you start noticing the way you talk to yourself and the meaning you're assigning to what's going on in your mind, it's like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Hi, Dad. See, there's my dad. I was talking about you earlier, Dad.
Oh, yeah. We had a conversation about you.
It was a good one. I was talking about how proud I am of you. Oh, goodness. Yes, it's me. Everyone else can do it except me. Yeah. See, when you start noticing these things, like, it's so wild. It's like, oh, I didn't even realize that. It's super, super interesting. Yeah, I don't like feeling that. Can this help someone quit smoking? Yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot. I mean, energy healing, there's never like guarantees with anything, but all I can say with anything is if you feel called to it and you've tried everything else, give it a try and see if you like it. Some people, there's even in energy healing, there's so many different modalities. Some people just don't like EFT tapping. They're like, I don't like it. It doesn't work either it doesn't work for them or they just don't like the tapping, or it's okay, but give it a try. See if it, feels good or releases anything for you. But yeah, you can make a script for yourself. I offer scripts if you want me to write a script for you based on whatever it is. And I have in it the tapping points, and I can write a script for you too. That's all, that stuff's available in the link in my bio. So there's lots of options, but there's all different ways of doing everything. But it's all getting us to the same point. So find what you like. That's one thing I'm learning in life. Find what feels good for you.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, there's so many things out there. Try it, see if it works for you, and if it doesn't, move on to the next one. And it all same goal to help you let go, nervous system regulation. There's just so many things out there. It's really incredible.
Love it. Right now I'm using emotion code. Well, I'm also learning body code, but to deal with those weight related issues and food related issues. And I've been working my way through, and it's super interesting because this is another thing that I noticed, like, especially in like the manifestation community, or when we're trying to change ourselves or transform our lives, is people think it's like this big, like, firework moment of like, oh, it happened. Sometimes that is true. But with this, I started noticing as I was, after doing my work with you too, when I did my first emotion and body code session with you, and also working with myself, naturally, as I've been doing it, I was just sitting down one day and I was like, hey, I don't snack as much as I used to. It just like was just random, right? Like, I'm like, I don't even know how many days I haven't been snacking as much as I used to, but I'm like, oh, that just happened naturally. It was a natural occurrence. It wasn't like I woke up and I'm like, well, it's just super interesting.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't, like you say, you don't feel anything. Like, did this even work? And then you start living your best life, and then you're not doing the same things, or you're not triggered as much, or you're not feeling a certain emotion. You're just like,
yeah. Yeah, after emotion code with Samantha, I felt less urge to smoke, wondering if this related. So they're both energy healing techniques. The great difference between the two, and this is something that somebody came to me and they said, is there something that like, they're like, I'm tired of tapping. And that's a great thing about emotion code. You don't have to tap. You go and it's just straight to the point. So maybe I didn't drink enough water because it's again, not necessarily going to happen overnight, right? Like, you may smoke less. You may feel the urge less. Keep working with Samantha on that. I call you Sam. Sam. Keep working with Sam on. I feel weird calling you Samantha. I'm not used to it.
Sometimes, like, even with me, I notice, like, so we'll talk about the snacking. Maybe I'm not snacking as much. And I'm like, well, why am I not? I should be. I should be eating at this time, or I'm used to eating, and I kind of like trick myself into doing it, even though I don't have the urge. It's like my mind's like, oh, well, this is the old way. Why aren't we not doing it? Same thing if like if someone does something and it pisses me off and it doesn't, I'm like, well, why am I not upset? I should be upset. And it's like I try to get self upset. Like, why aren't you upset? Hello? Are you working?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I love that. That's another thing too. It's when you know that you're growing and shifting because things, I mean, there's lots of ways, but just like you said, there were times that were patterns for me that they were the same scenario I had been in the past, right? With different faces. But I'm like, I felt different. And I'm like, wow, I'm not chasing after this, or I'm not, I'm like, why doesn't this bother me that much that, someone wants to like go do their own thing or whatever. I used to like be extremely anxiously attached. I think it was like disorganized attachment, and I've shifted into secure attachment. But I was like, this is weird. I was like, like I wish I had some like of that like creepy music, like do 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 do, like what is happening? But that's how you've released the attachment, you're releasing that pattern, and then you can
Yeah.
experience things differently. So, if
And
you have not done body code, try body code is so freaking cool. It is so freaking cool. Like emotion code is cool, but body code is it's
it
so
is
cool.
it is fun. And I have been debating on doing a live on that. It's a lot of information
Yes.
that sometimes it just takes a lot of time. So maybe in the future, I was debating on doing it on Thursday, but maybe next Thursday I'll just have like a couple people. If not, I mean, you can always book a session with me.
Look, I love this. A lot of people forget to choose themselves even over family. You can't be a punching bag for them. That's what I call this. Like a lot of times there's that, this is what I call toxic loyalty. And it can go in families. It can be really to anything, but it's that mentality, especially like in dysfunctional families of it's family over anything, and it's family first, and they're your family. So you have to basically tolerate whatever, however they treat you, and that's just not true. So yes, like that's part of the process too, is learning to choose yourself and put yourself first, because when you start doing that and learning to set boundaries, then you can reintegrate with your family as your new self, and you'll either be like it's all navigating it. But I love that. Choose yourself. Like that is a very, I don't like to use the word toxic, a toxic belief that it's like, they're your family. But, if they're not treating you well and it's repeating old patterns, you have the right to take care of yourself. You do. And it's really powerful when you do that too. Especially as moms, we give up so much of ourselves. So not just moms, I think women in general. I honestly, as someone who identifies as a woman, the limiting beliefs that I worked through on that was huge. Like all the way down to my cycle, and like how I noticed when I would say like that the associations I had about my period, like and what that meant, and I had to be in pain, and I was going to be emotional around that time, and I was like, I can just change the story because that's just what everyone told me. And so I did that, and now I don't have cramps. I don't get extra emotional around that time. Like those are all beliefs that are pressed on us. And it's like, there's so much. And this is why, like, looking at the different aspects of how you've identified your whole life and looking at those belief systems is huge. Like I had to deconstruct my internalized fat phobia. And I have been heavy my whole life. How the heck could I have internalized fat phobia? Well, guess what? I sure as heck did. I sure did. I was like, wow, because I've been afraid of being in my body my whole life. Why? Because it looked a certain way. Who told me that? It's like, it's just huge.
Yeah. I'm laughing at Janine. She's like, Dad just stepped out.
Dad doing his thing. Why
I
are my fingers in pain when I tap? I don't have the answer for that. It could be energy moving around. I'm not 100% sure, but allow it, let it go. If it's bothering you, you don't have to tap. Don't do that. If anything is like bringing you into pain and it's like consistently that way, then just take a rest from it. Okay, listen to your body and what you need.
Yeah, and are you tapping too hard or maybe just do
Yes.
it lightly? Because you don't have to do really, because I realize sometimes I'm like knocking myself out. So maybe do it gently. And if it's your fingertips, I mean, maybe we have energy centers at our fingertips, so maybe those are being unblocked. They're being balanced too. I mean, there's just so many things
That's a
in my
great
head.
point. Somebody did ask me once. They're like, if you tap harder and faster, will it move? I was like, don't hurt yourself. Like, you really, like, even when you're doing muscle testing, you learn you don't have to use that much pressure. Like,
Yeah,
like some people, it's like, but you just, yeah, tap lightly. I like that, Sam. Thank you for bringing that up because it's
yeah.
spot on.
Because sometimes if I tap hard, it'll leave, and then it's like my fingers hurt, and now I have a headache.
And I'm like, Alisha,
So,
geez, I know.
and even like yeah, with the muscle testing, I would be like, "Ugh," and then my pinky would.
I laugh
Now it's
because
just
yeah, when I was learning muscle testing and I was like really trying to be like, okay, is this a real answer? Like I would like hold it and like with a lot of resistance and I'm like, just think of it and I'm like, it still breaks. I'm like, okay, I'm like, I don't have to do that all the time now. Like I can trust it because I'd be like, it's a yes. Let me pull even harder, and I'm like, okay, it's a yes.
I know, and it's just nice and gentle, nice, and it's just like getting over that. Listen, my hands were so sore when starting muscle testing. It hurt so much, and I was just like, all right, I need to relax a little bit. Um, can you do
Dan Boy asks, have you helped somebody with or who is BPD? I'm guessing that's borderline personality disorder. I think that's BPD.
bipolar?
Or it could be bipolar. I know
Although
that's like they have things. Me personally, I have not. Now, when I look back at like who I used to be and the behaviors I had, I probably could have been diagnosed with that. Like honestly, if I look at, I mean, look at what that entailed, and I shifted myself out of that through all different modalities, through just deciding I'm not that person anymore, choosing to take actions and behaviors that don't match that anymore. So you can no matter what condition you have, no matter where you're at, you have the power to heal it, release it, shift it, change it. If you're willing to believe that, you don't have to be limited by the things around you. And I know I talk with Sam too. Like if you have diagnoses like that, the energy healing and Western medicine techniques, they go well together. It doesn't make sense to not use medications that are treating your symptoms while you're working on root cause stuff. Don't do that to yourself. Okay. Because I know can be a lot of fear in the spiritual community about medications are bad. Alcohol is bad. This is bad. This lowers your vibration. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Okay. That's still to me fear-based thinking. So use what works for you. And you can use these two. They go great together. I love when Sam's like, they marry great together. They do. They're a great pair.
We're in this team, mind, body, soul. You know, you got to work on your mindset, see a therapist if you need physical, go to a doctor, take care of your physical body. And then the spirit side is energetic, like your limiting beliefs, energy healing, and we all work together. And a lot of people believe like if you do energy healing, you hate Western medicine, and that's not the case. And I remember sitting at the dinner table with my family, and my dad asked me, because he's kind of like unsure about it, and that's okay. He supports me, but it just, it is what it is. And he's like, well, what if you break your leg? Like, what are you going to do? And so I said, oh, I'll just put a bunch of crystals on it and it'll take care of it. And
Make
everybody
sure they're
looked at me.
pointing inward.
What was that?
Make sure they're pointing inward at the broken bones.
Yeah. I was like, I'll just put a bunch of crystals on it. And the look on everybody's face, because I seem serious, was like, I would go to a doctor. And they're like, oh, okay. I was like, no, it's not. Energy healing does not replace modern medicine. We work together.
No, and that's the thing, exactly it. This is why too, I think sometimes in the spiritual community, like when we get caught in the, like, it's just the mindset, there's still the past wound. We're like, okay, well, now that we know that, we're going to bypass this this emotional wound that's been pussing for decades for me, or for most of us. And we're just going to be like, okay, well, no. You got to treat that now. Like, go back, give it the, energetic antibiotic and release that stuff. And then once you know all this and transform all that from there, then it feels easier. But yeah, exactly. Go to the doctor. It's okay. Go to the doctor.
Right. I don't like being on medication because I have a belief that I'm sensitive. I get all the side effects. So I really resisted in that. But I had fibromyalgia. I don't have it anymore. Lymphedema, I don't have that anymore. PTSD, rarely have
Mm-hmm.
triggers with that. And it's all about how I view it and, changing my mindset about it. I wasn't like brushing it on the rug, but like with fibromyalgia, I didn't identify as fibromyalgia. I changed, like, my body can heal itself from anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
always looked at it as like I have the ability to create a child in my body, create organs, skin, and everything. Why can't my body create, like, to heal it, repair it from whatever's contributing to fibromyalgia? And I think a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with your nervous system and being in fight or flight that contributes to it. So I work through that. But yeah, just being okay with, accepting my emotions, feeling them, validating them, that helped me heal and release my PTSD. And
Mm-hmm.
so getting triggers. And when I do, I know how to work through them. So it's very
Yep.
powerful.
Yep. And I used to have gastroesophageal reflux disease. Don't have that anymore. That's gone. I used to a long time ago be able to eat tomatoes, and then a lot of stuff was going on and I couldn't even eat tomatoes anymore. And I'm like, so it's not something that I was going on my whole life. And I was like, what is happening? Like that kind of like, to me too, it's like when you develop those things, it's like, what is happening here? And one of the interesting things that I found, and this is also like where I was kind of like, there's something deeper going on. I had gone to the doctor for for something, and they couldn't find a reason for it. They were giving all these reasons, and I'm like, well, that's not actually true. I'm like, they're like, oh, you're probably sweating more. Oh, you're doing. I'm like, I'm not. Like, they're trying to find a reason and they couldn't. So I'm like, when I learned about this stuff, I'm like, that's why they couldn't. They couldn't explain their way out of it because there was something deeper going on within me. So it's kind of like, it was just really interesting. Yeah, it's like they couldn't give me a reason, and now I know why. Because medicine doesn't have all the answers either.
Right. And that's why we work.
That's why they go well together. Exactly. I was literally looking for a psychiatrist when I stumbled on Sam's live last week. Oh, I'm still so grateful. I still message and text her, and I'm like, Sam, I'm just so glad I found you because you really really, you do. I've learned so much from you. You're just a very loving, welcoming person, and I love coming to your lives. Like, it's just a fun community. The whole community is like, it's amazing.
We have so much fun.
Yeah. That's how I feel. That's how I feel with my community too. Like, you just build together, and it's like everyone contributes to a safe space, because I know that's very important for you. Safe space, that's very important to me, and we can start that, but everyone involved in it creates that too. So it's like it's teamwork.
And I absolutely love going to your lives, and then I see people from my community, and it's like we just have this amazing community to each other, and it's just like absolutely amazing. I'm like, hey, what's up? And I can actually like talk to them and not like do Reiki and like my mind's gone, be like, yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
So can you do emotion code more than once? You can. Sometimes I recommend, like, if you want to do it regularly, once a week. Sometimes your subconscious mind will be like, you could do it every day, but I usually just say once a week. If did I say once a month or once a week? I meant to say once a week. If I said once a month.
Oh yeah. So if the emotions, so when you have trapped emotions, if the emotions were already released, there's every trapped emotion is connected to a specific incident at a certain time in your life. So you may see them more than once. So just because like trapped emotion of shame came up, and it came up at age 16, for example, and you release that, that doesn't mean that every instance of shame throughout your life is gone. But from that specific instance, that is gone. That will not come back. So yeah, it would be nice if I would love if we could just go and like, be like, just do the emotions one by one and just release them like as an overarching theme. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Sadly.
Sometimes we're not ready. Sometimes we need to release other things. I'm not sure how it works, but it is what we do what the subconscious mind or your higher self says. It's once a week, not a month. I sometimes I say the opposite of what I'm thinking, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
I mean everything I think I say. That is a new
Mm-hmm.
affirmation to say. I think
Yeah. And it's also too, like, I feel like when you're doing things like emotion code and you're working with your subconscious mind, you're also building self-trust because your subconscious mind knows the best order to release everything. So it doesn't overwhelm you because your body think of it like an electrical socket. If you put too much power into an electrical socket, what happens? It's like, and not saying you would, well, maybe you would, but your subconscious mind's not going to let that happen to you. So when you trust it and it goes in the order, that's why, like, in sessions that I've done, like, there will be some things from when I'm a kid and then some things from last year and then some, like, it'll bop around. Sometimes it's just one time of life, but it's all about just trusting and knowing that that's the order, that it's ready to release it. And it's doing its thing in the best way that feels as good as possible for you, because it doesn't always feel great processing, but it is worth it to release it. So yeah, that's learning to trust the process and trust the self and say, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it. And that's why it's fun sometimes to say, what's the highest priority, subconscious mind? And just let it take control.
That's why I love doing priorities. Those are the most juicy ones, and it's like it knows what you need to release right now. And like I said, those are the heavy ones. You're like, oh yeah, I think, oh, my back's kind of hurting. I want to work on that. I'm like, nah, let's work on highest priority. No, I'm just you work on you can work on it.
Yep.
So the subconscious could be holding on to others and not ready to release. Yes, think of it as an onion. You have to release the first layer, and then you keep going. Now, sometimes it could be 2 sessions where you release everything, or is multiple sessions. It really depends, like, your views on your emotions. Did you feel safe feeling your emotions? Did you know how to feel your emotions? So like, there's so many things that are contributing to it. Yes, this will be uploaded to YouTube. Yes. All right. And then Becca says, I'm an overthinker. Any ideas how to stay focused? Mine is a negative inner talk. I tried rubber bands. Were you hurting yourself? You can.
Okay. So here with overthinking, I think the first step for anything really, including overthinking, is to start just bringing awareness to it. And you can, as soon as you notice it, say, I'm overthinking right now. It's okay for me to stop this. And just starting to take that observer role. And then for me, because the other day I was overthinking about something, I'm like, what is going on here? So see, I have done plenty of work. I'm human, okay? I will not sit here and tell you I think perfect thoughts every single day, although they are perfect. They're perfect for me. But I use them to identify, I look at myself as like a puzzle. I'm like, and I love puzzles and games. So it's like, when I notice I'm overthinking, I usually is to bring awareness, but then to ground myself in my body. Because if I'm overthinking, I've usually fled my body and gone straight into my mind. So grounding technique, there's all different kinds, like a deep breath, holding your hands to your heart. You can even close your eyes and visualize roots coming out from the bottom of your, if you're sitting, from your like root chakra, or if you're standing, from the bottoms of your feet, like grounding you in, and breathe and connect that way. And sometimes just doing that you'll notice you'll stop overthinking. Because what's happening is there's something usually going on that you're not feeling safe with. So you're like, and you're also, when you're overthinking, trying to prepare so that you're prepared for something that hasn't happened yet based on past experiences. So depending what's going on, bring awareness to it, ground yourself. I feel like grounding is like the number one first kind of thing you do once you notice it. Because then once you do that, then you actually will have, depending on how deep the trigger is or what's going on, you'll have access to your logical mind to reflect and say, okay, what was I thinking about? What was really going on there? Is this a pattern? And just investigating it. Because when you are triggered, you do flee your body. You're immediately in a, well, there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, I think is a new response now. So one of those things is going to happen based on whatever's really happening around you. So when you flee your body and you're triggered, that's why people who feel triggered, they look like they're acting irrationally, because they are. They're responding to something. They don't have access to rationality. I used to be that way. I would just lash out and just automatically respond or react. It wasn't even a response. So when you do that, and you ground yourself, and then you have access to your logical mind, because you're not acting from logic when you're in survival mode and in a mode where you feel like your life is literally threatened, even though it's not most of the time. Like if you're in traffic, yes, get out of the way of the cars. But you know, things like somebody going to work for the day, like if you have a severe abandonment issue, that could trigger you. But that's not life or death. When you were a kid, might it have been? Yes. It's just there's so many nuances and facets to it. So that's my suggestion. I did bruise myself. I can let a thought grow. It's wild. So just, yeah, just start observing that, and just even tension with your subconscious mind to say, you know, I'm willing to notice my overthinking, and I'm ready to break that cycle. That's my suggestion.
Yes, this will be posted on YouTube. It'll be on mine, and then I'm gonna figure out how Alisha can put it on hers as well, so you can have it. I'll
I
share.
I thought about making this my official first podcast episode, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll talk logistics. We'll text each other so you can
Yes.
so you can get a copy of this. And then
okay, I understand.
Go ahead.
I was reading, I understand the subconscious lets go, but is that the one you were reading? But what if your conscious wants to know the event? Well, if your conscious wants to know the event, Sam probably remembers my session. I was like, I want to know more. I want to know more. You can ask those questions. And you're allowed, I mean, you're allowed, it's your information. You can ask that. And if you're doing an emotion code or a body code session with Sam, you can say, I would like to know more. Or if you're doing your own muscle testing, you could say, I would like to know more. What is this? Well, you have to ask yes or no questions, you know, and start digging that way. You can get down to through the layers of it to find out what it is that you'd like to know. And then after a while, because at first I was so fascinated, I was like, I need to know everything. And then after a while, I was like, I just let it, I'm ready to release it. I don't need to know. If I need to know, a memory will pop up for me. But otherwise, but at first I was like, everything. Tell me everything.
Yeah, so that's why on the lives, I don't, because it would just take too much time unless, you know, I would have someone on the live, like something like this, like host, and then I could actually talk to the person if they want to know more. But again, I want to respect people's privacy because this is going to be posted on YouTube, unless they don't want it. But yeah, in a in-person session with me or Alisha, we can, if you want to know information, we can go and we can find that information.
Yep. Your mind's going to let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
might be opening a can of worms. Yeah, and I feel like that's part of the process too, is because the logical mind, the ego mind's job is it wants to know what's going on. It wants to like understand everything. So that's part of the transitioning process, I think of it as well. At first, I wanted to know why everything was going on. I wanted to know why every emotion was surfacing. I didn't really need to know all that, but my ego mind's like, hold on, wait a minute. Why is this happening? It's part of the process. It's okay. It's down there for a reason. Yeah, well, you know, again, the subconscious will release it. The conscious mind doesn't always need to know, but if you want to, you can indulge it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I just like be gone. I don't care. Be gone. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're doing like a private emotion code session, also the more questions you ask, I don't want to say like the less emotions you'll release, but if you're spending your time with going into every single one, then I don't want to say the real work isn't like occurring to its fullest, but it does take time to find that information. So, anyway, just thought I'd share that too.
Yeah. And especially if, you're going to get those memories within the next couple of days, your conscious mind's going to show you, or just set the intention that as you're getting everything that's released from your session is shown to you in the next few days too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sam was very good at giving me information. At first, I was so intrigued. I wanted to know. Yep, I know, me too. I was like, I can know all this. And I was like asking her, I was like, am I allowed to know more about this? Like, can you ask this? And she's like, well, yeah. And I'm
like this waiting. You're like, well, what do I want to know? What do I want to ask? And I'm just like ready.
I know,
like,
not being caught up in like, what's the question I want to know? Like, as if we only can ask one question. Like, what's the perfect question?
And then sometimes I'll just take over. I was like, all right, male, female, like to help you out. You're like, what question do I want? I'm going to be over here trying to figure things out.
I know it trips me up when I actually need to know more in a session beyond the age. Cause I'm like, what the heck do I ask? What do you, like, that's when I feel like the subconscious should just tell me something. Like, enough of the yes or no's. Like, I'm like, where do you want me to go from here? So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what's a good logical question to come next? It just throws me off because I'm not used to it.
Yeah, I get like a jolt in my body when it's like, yeah, you do. I was like, oh. So that's why I asked the gender, if it was a friend or family or an event. And that's as far as I go. And usually that's it's with that.
Yeah. Yep. That's usually it. Like, is it family related? I feel like that's my first question. Depending what it is, I'm like, is it family related?
Like,
is it career related? Is it school related? Yeah. I guess in general areas of life.
Hit the basics, and then if it's not happy, then just be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah. I encourage people to research the ego in general. It's a concept that people have confused. Exactly. Because in the spiritual community, especially, you have people who, it's called ego death. But you don't want your ego to die because you need your ego. You need your ego to actually protect you and save you from real things that are an actual threat to your life. So I prefer to call it ego integration because that's what you're doing. You're basically collecting, like, I also talk about it in terms of, like, you're giving your ego a promotion. You're like giving it a new job description. You're, rebranding it, however you want to say it. That feels good. But that's exactly it. Because it's like, if you've had your ego your whole life, or, well, imagine you've been with somebody your whole life and all you've been doing is protecting them. Okay. And they turn to you and they say, I don't need you anymore. And they try to cast you aside. How's it going to make you feel? Like, your ego mind's like, what do you mean? I'm just trying to protect you. So it's kind of like, okay, I do need you. Let's discuss how we can make this work in a way that benefits us both, because we do need each other, but not in this way. The way this is working right now is not helpful. So that's exactly it. The concept of the ego. Yes, I love that. There's always it's like a war against the ego. No, you need your ego.
Yeah, it's your BFF. It's just like, it's very protective of you. It's your ride or die. You just need to be like, listen, we good now. Let's focus on other things. Let's have fun now. Let's not be so scared.
Yeah. What happens if it isn't? Oh wait, it isn't accurate? Is that considered a block? Can you read everyone? So are you talking about like an emotion code? Because in emotion code and body code, when you're working with a practitioner, they're connecting directly to your subconscious mind. So you might not consciously remember something, but the subconscious is going to give an answer. If it doesn't want to, it's not going to. It will say that it's not ready to release something. It's not going to, it'll give a no, or it won't even bring it up. So it's not that sometimes things will come up and they might not resonate, But then again, during the processing time, a memory may come up, that energy may come up. So I don't think that there's necessarily anything inaccurate. And just because you don't remember it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. Because if everything in our body, like every single experience, piece of information is all being recorded by the subconscious, imagine trying to consciously remember every single thing that you've thought, saw, experienced, heard from somebody in life, like every piece of information. It's like, ooh. So, and also something that I'm noticing too is like in emotion code, the words are so big. They sound big. It's like rejection and, panic and these really big words. So when those big words come up and it's like a young age, or betrayal, this is one of them, betrayal, right? And it'll be betrayal. And it came up at age 4 or age 5. And it's like, wow, betrayal at age 5, huh? Well, a 5-year-old, if their best friend gives their favorite crayon to some other person, that to a 5-year-old could be a betrayal. Like it's all relative. So it's also, I think about like when parents are with their kids too, sometimes. And the things that are really important to the kids that they're crying over, they're like, why are you crying over that? It's not that big of a deal. To them, it is. Kids probably look at us when we're yelling at a piece of paper that's a bill, and they're probably like, why are they yelling at that paper? Like, it's a paper. So that's the thing, is like, we may not understand how our body processed or produced that at that time, or understood or felt at that time. So this is where I just like trust it, and like, I'm like, okay, just get it out. It needs to go fine.
Mhm. Right, exactly. And even feeling our emotions, like if you think of the last week, do you remember every single emotion that you've had within the week? Probably not. I know I had colorful emotions within the last week. Do I remember why? No. Do I remember what specifically? No. And that's just the week. Like I don't need to remember why I felt hurt or I felt angry. It's just something that I just don't need to remember. So, you a year, like there's 365 days in a year. We experience a variety of emotions in one day, and sometimes in an hour. And so when things come up, you're like, well, I don't remember, I don't resonate with that. Or like I think self-abuse is one of them. A lot of people are like, well, I don't remember, that year was a phenomenal year for me. It's like, well, you don't know during that time. Maybe you had like an hour where you were just really mean to yourself and you held on to it, or you didn't get enough sleep because you were at a concert and you were up all night and you were having a blast, but that was considered self-abuse because then you were tired for the next couple of days. So things like that.
No.
That
Unfortunately, pain started in your past life. And that's kind of the interesting thing too. Like you can use, well, that's one of the services I offer, is you can use emotion code for past life healing. You can, because I thought it was interesting, the different types of trapped emotions. And I was like, oh, this is a fancy word for past life. I was like, oh, okay. So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, I believe in past lives. It's interesting because I didn't, like, if you had asked me before my awakening if I believe in past lives and reincarnation, I'd be like, whatever. But in my experience, like in my dream state, as I was letting all this stuff go, I had 2 distinct past life experiences come to me in my dream, like where I didn't like do a meditation or a regression or anything like that. And I was like, what is happening? It was like I was watching something on a movie screen in my dream. And I'm like, I know I'm dreaming, but what is going on? Who are these people? And then something, and there was like, that's you. I was like, well, which one? I didn't know which one it was, but I'm like, maybe that doesn't matter. It's like, this is an experience. And it was just super wild. And those 2 things actually were themes that I hadn't uncovered why I felt triggered by them in this lifetime. And that was exactly why I was like, that's what it is. Like I was connected to the things in this lifetime in positive ways. But if someone said it, talked about it in a wrong way, it would trigger me. And now I know why. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so wild. So yeah. And go ahead.
Oh, I just said it's all coming together.
I know all the pieces come together, and that's the thing. It's energy, and it also made sense too when energy is neither created nor destroyed. So when our vessels expire here, our avatars, like the energy within us goes somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. So and that anyway, there's I could talk about all this stuff forever, but yeah, that makes sense. It wouldn't, So anyway, past lives are super fascinating. Yeah, it's always cool especially with the motion code. I think one of the coolest things, like like at first when you start doing it and learning it and you start working with people, especially with inherited emotions, when you know nothing about their family, because that was probably the one that like scared me the most, because I'm like, the ego mind is like, what if you get this wrong? Like, what if it? And I was like, no, 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 you know what you're doing, it's okay. But it's like, and then I'll go through the genealogy and they're like, oh my gosh, this happened to so and so. And you don't have to ever share anything in your emotion code, but some people feel to share it. And they're like, wow, this, and I'm like, oh, and I'm always like, on the inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got it. But it's like, it's not like I got it. Like the subconscious was there and honest. But having those confirmations is really cool sometimes because it like helps trust the process. But I'm still impressed by that. Sometimes I'm like, wow, awesome. Like, go you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got to trust yourself. That's the hardest part. And
Yeah.
it's trusting yourself and just allowing.
Mm-hmm. One of the coolest things is inherited healing all the generations. I know. It's like, yeah. We found some in my session with Sam, and I was like, let's do this. And I was like, my family better get ready, friends, because what's happening?
Yeah, it's so cool. Healing everybody. Did you ever pick up on somebody and get really exhausted? Mm, like during emotion code or body code? I mean, I think the only time I get tired when you heal yourself, you heal everyone. When you heal yourself, you heal everyone. So yeah, with the inherited ones, and even some of the other types of trapped emotions, if it's tied to another person, it releases from them as well.
I think like for me, when I do emotion code, well, I always, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, I always accept. I'm like, hey, if this resonates for me too, let it be gone. Like, and I do that in your lives. I just always am like open to like releasing. I'm like, that's fine. You always have consent. And that's why I think sometimes I even feel your Reiki when I'm not here and you'll be live. Cause I'm like, whenever Sam is doing Reiki, I consent. Like, I don't have to be there. Like it's open. Let it flow, baby.
Yeah, yeah, and you can do that. You can do that. Anybody, yeah. So if you're like, well, if I miss Sam's live or so and so's live, I still intend that the energy's coming my way.
Yep, exactly. The only reason I feel like if I would feel like tired or something like that is because I've accepted that if it resonates with me, I'll release it. But otherwise, like, we're really connected to somebody else and that's their, like, them directly. So if it doesn't resonate, then I don't think it's at the actual act of doing it. It's the fact that I've intended that if it resonates, I'm willing to let it go also. So, Sam, yeah, Sam always has an open invitation over here.
Someone from the past, they can feel it too. Hold on, let me read that again. So when you're no longer upset at someone from the past, they can feel it too.
Well, I mean, we're all connected. We're all connected. I mean, and here's the thing with law of assumption too, what you assume to be true is what you'll experience. So if you assume somebody is feeling a different way based on something you've released, how you've healed, then they may reflect that back to you. So, they may not. It's kind of like, what do you want it to be? Because we're all writing our own stories here. Everything's really reflecting the unconscious stories we're telling ourselves, usually unconscious, then we make them conscious, then we shift them around to be what we want. So, don't they have to set the intention to release? I mean, so if you're assuming, I mean, you can assume whatever you want in your reality. You're the one giving all the meaning to everything. So you can set the intention that they release it. And if they do, they will. And if they don't, they won't. And it's all, I mean, to me, there's never a harm in setting out the intention that it's going to free somebody else to like release them from it. That's how I feel about it. When people say we're all connected, I think of the mind library. I mean, it kind of, they call that the Akashic Records, right? The mind library. Isn't that like pretty much where, I mean, the Akashic Records, I don't know if people are familiar with that or have experienced that. That's one of the first things I learned to do too, was read my Akashic Records. And that was an experience.
One done 10 years ago, but I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything.
Oh, thank you. I think too, it's interesting when you start learning all of these things and you start learning the different techniques and you start trying different things, the core concepts are all the same. Like, it's just a different way of doing it. And I'm like, okay, so like, and you see that even through like religious texts too. You see the same kinds of symbols. You see the same, like, it's all the same core concepts being taught, but differently. And I know like religious texts and things have changed and been, altered to fit narratives and stuff like that. But like the original way those things were written, it's all the same core stuff underneath, and it's all the same concepts. And it's like, this is just like this. This is just like this. I was like, oh, this is this. And it's super fascinating. I'm like, we're all talking about the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, animals can access it too. Yes. Yep. And I thought that was the coolest thing with emotion code and body code, is that you can work with animals. That was so cool. That was really cool.
Work with anything.
Mm-hmm.
All different names. Yeah. And I always look back to, because I love different cultures. I love how people view the world. And my favorite is when, thousands of years ago, people interpreted the world in their own unique way, but it was all the same. Even though they had no contact, well, at least we don't know if they didn't have contact, but they didn't have contact with each other. So it's like, yeah, it's different, but the same. I don't know. We're all connected. It's very fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That law of thought transmission is a really powerful one. Like, what you think someone is thinking about you is what you're going to experience them thinking about you, because you're the only one experiencing your experience. That's right. Why people can experience people differently. I know it's kind of a hot topic and a little controversial topic, but test it out. Like, the way you think about somebody is how they're showing up. And if you've experienced them in that, if you hold an old story of them, that can feel challenging to change sometimes. But yeah, you can, and this is why they say you can manifest for others. You can heal others in your experience too. Now there's different, some people believe that people can accept or reject those beliefs. So whatever feels good for you, that feels good for you. Now, Neville Goddard talks about how everyone accepts what you're putting out, because that's how you're going to experience them. So in that way, in that realm, they are going to accept that. So that's why he says to use your thoughts for good. At one point he said, well, I think he switched this, but what he said is that people can only reject your thoughts or assumption about them if they don't believe it's true of themselves or of anyone else, because we're all connected. So, and the worst, I mean, and I want to say worst case scenario, but if you're putting out a good intention and it's not accepted, the worst case scenario on that is that you're receiving that energy back to yourself. So being mindful of that. So, to me, it never hurts if you're putting out a good intention. If it's rejected, then you're receiving that healing, or you're receiving that. So can't go wrong.
Right. Luna Moose?
Wait, you can do emotion code for my kitty? Yep. Yeah. Emotion code. I don't know if Sam does emotion code with pets or not. You do? Okay. Yeah. But that is something that can be done. Yes. It's very cool.
Yeah.
And kids too. And kids and teens. I've been working with my nieces and nephews. It's cool stuff.
I think working with animals is hard, just emotionally hard, because we bring up stuff. And then, when I have the pet's owner and we bring up something like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. They're like, oh, I know. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then they feel bad. I'm like, no,
Yes.
you're good. You're good. We're releasing it.
Yes, I know.
When I was practicing on my cats and with the emotion code, like things came up. I was like, that affected you? Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
That probably is the like challenging part of it, because the animals, I mean, they're just gonna they accept all the healing because they're unconditionally loving. They will take it all. But yeah, when I worked with some pets, like I'm like, do you really want me to tell you? Because some of the emotions were absorbed from the owner, and I'm like, do you want to know? Like, or do you want me to just release it? But that's it. Like but the owner's feelings are valid too. That brings up something for them to release as well, I suppose. But
Yeah,
that is a good point.
it's hard. It's really hard, but they just love all of us unconditionally, and they are more than happy to take those emotions from us if we feel good, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. Yeah. I think yeah. And working with, when I saw you could work with kids, well, and teenagers too, because you can work with anybody. It's like, but of course, I offer kid and teen sessions, but of course, you have to be the legal parent or guardian to be able to consent to it for them. But it's very cool. One of my nephews was having nightmares. He was so cute. He was having nightmares, and so we did a session. And I actually did one, I did it proxy. So I did it where he wasn't here with me and I wasn't even on a call with him. And I just I used a picture of him because I had it available. And so when he came to my house, I asked him how his nightmares were doing. He's like, he's like, I'm still having them. And I was like, are they as bad as before? He's like, no. And I was like, did you know Auntie did some energy healing? He's like, well, yeah. And he didn't make the connection. So I asked if I could do a session on him or if he wanted me to. And he said yes. So I was doing it and he was so intrigued. He like looked over, he's like, what are you finding? And I was like, oh, this. And he's like, that makes sense. And so it was so funny. And so then that night he's like, hey, you're gonna have to drink extra water. You might get thirsty. So then the next morning, well, that night he was like, Auntie, I'm really thirsty. I'm like, okay, drink your water. And the next morning I totally forgot about it. He's like, Auntie, my nightmares are gone and my thirst is normal again. And I was like, were you having nightmares every night? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then they came back because I did test and it said there was still some stuff there. So I had a feeling they weren't going to fully go away. But he comes to me, he's like, Auntie, I don't think you can heal my nightmares. And I said, well, your mind says we can release more stuff if you want. And he's just so intrigued by it. And then I was talking to him about heart wall. A heart wall. He's like, what's a heart wall? And I had already told all the kids about it because we play God of War. And Kratos, who's the main character in that game, he's like really angry. I said, Kratos has probably a really big heart wall, like, because he's not very loving, he's not very receptive, like, and so I talked to him about it. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, that's right, Kratos. I asked if I could do some heart wall for him, and he's like, what is the heart wall? And he's like, oh yeah, Kratos has a heart wall. He's like, Auntie, I think I have a heart wall. And so it was just so endearing and sweet, and I'm just like, kids are so cute. So
Yeah. I a couple years ago, I was working with a client and she's like, I want you to work on my 14-year-old son. And I was like, she's like, he probably is not really big into this, but I want you to like have a phone session with him. So I call him up and I explain everything. And he clearly wants nothing to do with me or this. He's just doing this for his mom. And he was having trouble sleeping. And so I was like, okay, is that all that you want to work on today? Just trouble sleeping? He's like, yeah, sure. Okay. He didn't want to know anything. He just wanted to know the emotion and move on. So I'm working on him, and close to 47 trapped emotions came up over sleep. Now I'm learning that the subconscious mind's like was like, oh yes, this totally has to do with your sleep issues, but it didn't have anything to do with it because he didn't want to work on anything else. He only wanted to work on one thing. So the subconscious will add things that aren't even related to it to release. And so that was the one where I just kept going. I was like, oh my, there's no way that like 47 things, half emotions are contributing to this child, you know?
Like at 14 years old.
Yeah, 14 years old, like for sleep. So it's funny that, there are some kids are open and sometimes kids aren't open. And the subconscious mind is going to take advantage and just like release things even if it doesn't have anything to do with it. And I've seen that multiple times and it's just so funny. I love, you can just like sense the humor of people's subconscious minds. Like, and even like sometimes if you've seen even on my live, I have people, they organize their trapped emotions. So all we're going to do is work on grief. So I have 4 grief and then we move on to another emotion. And then we have a couple of those and then we move on to the next. And I'm always like, are you like, are you a very organized person? And they're like, yeah, I have OCD. I was like, yeah, I can tell, I can tell just based
Oh,
on how
that's
you.
so interesting. Oh my gosh. It's so interesting to see that like patterns and stuff that, or the observations and like, and I'm also like integrating the gifts that I mean, we all have the gifts. It's not like I have these gifts. Like you all have the gifts too. It's the 5 clairs, right? And so I'm mostly clairaudient. That's what I've resonated with and tapped into. And I'm learning too that in emotion code, I can combine those things. So like in an emotion code session, a trapped emotion came up and this song came to me and I was like, I haven't even heard that song in however long. And I was like, just so, and I was like, they didn't teach us this in emotion code, but I'm like, well, I'm just going to share this song came to mind. And so I was like, hey, like, just so you know, this song is coming to my mind. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I felt. Yeah, that was the question that I was asking at that time. And I'm like, uh-huh. And then at one time I had like a vision. Like I wouldn't call myself clairvoyant, but when I was closing my eyes, like a vision came to me. And I was like, I never get these. I was like, maybe I should say something. So I did. And the person immediately, when I shared that with them, knew exactly what memory that emotion was associated with. And I was like, if I didn't share this, like, so it's helping me learn too that like all these things work together. And just because I didn't learn it in the course, I mean, they do talk about the clairs, but how to integrate them together and that I can say this and that it match. Anyway, it's all learning with that stuff. And it's super cool. Like, so I love that. And it also what you're sharing too shows your subconscious mind is ready to heal. It wants to do these things. It's the ego mind that's saying, I don't want to do this.
Right.
Mm-mm. Your subconscious is like, okay, we'll work around this. I'll work with you, my
Yeah.
friend. I got you.
Mine was a depression sandwich. Yes, Jay started with depression, ended with depression. You were simmering in that for a while. Jay was like the MVP because I started with I did a live and I was working on Jay, and the first emotion was depression. And then there was like an issue with like people wanting to schedule. So I was like, hold on, Jay, just like marinate. So they were just marinating in depression for a little bit. And it was so funny. And just the communication, the conversation we were having with Jay is just like, just go ahead, leave me with depression. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then we ended with depression. So it was just funny how the subconscious mind just worked with that. Literally my first time doing this. Yeah, first time doing it. And I was just like, all right, we have depression. Hold on 1 second. Just wait a little bit while I'm doing something over here. Yeah, it was hilarious. It was great. But
I
it felt
love
so
that.
good. So I
What's
did set the intention that any other depression that they had would be released as well, since they were marinating in it for so long.
oh my goodness. Okay, so someone asked, what is the most you've released from someone in a session as far as emotions? Do you know?
Um, the with that one kid, it was 47. And then I think well, with the body code, I've had close to 53. So yes, sometimes I do get people who are just like I don't want to know any information. I don't want to know anything. Just go and release. And so then
Yep.
if they're not asking questions and they don't want to know, I mean, you can release a lot in a session. But with the emotion code, it was 47 with that teenager, and then like 53, 54 with just the body code.
Wow. Yeah, I'm still newish to it. So in the course, we only were releasing a certain number. So I don't have enough like full round experience to really fully answer that. I think the most I've done so far is like 19. So, not bad. Not that it's
Yeah.
a marathon, but yeah, everyone's different. Some people just and that's the thing is like, maybe it's a little easier sometimes to work on people like the kid who's like, I'm not into this, so they're not going to ask questions. It's like, okay, like move through, like, okay, toot.
Right. And maybe
um,
just you are just like, I want to release as much as possible. Let it go. And you're just like, okay, let's go. And you just let the subconscious mind do its thing. And I remember when I was taking emotion code, they're like, well, sometimes it's best to only release like five emotions in a session. I was like, but why should I decide how much they
yeah,
should release? So I just let the subconscious aside. I don't put
yep,
any limits until you tap out or the subconscious mind taps out. We
yeah.
keep going.
Well, that kind of like well, not confused me, but at first, but I'm like, if I'm doing it by timed session, then I'm like, so if I reach the 10 before the time's up, like, how do you work that with people? So I'm like, I'm just gonna, if the subconscious is ready to do it, let it roll. But for the sake of, whatever, I will follow that rule at that time. But I mean, really, I'm sure they're not just releasing a certain amount either. But hey, who knows? Oh, the Grinch started with a heart wall. That is a really good like analogy. And now I want to go find a screenshot of the Grinch and be like, don't be a Grinch. Let your heart wall flow or something.
Break down that wall.
Yeah. Is it harder to do if they're not really into it? So I don't, here's my experience. I don't think it's not harder, but I feel like the people who have been the most open to it have had the biggest shifts the fastest. So when I was doing my practice sessions, I would ask people, and I feel like some of them just said yes because they wanted to be helpful, but they maybe necessarily didn't really like believe in it. You don't have to fully believe in it, but I feel like if the more open you are, the more it allows it to kind of happen. And I've noticed just, I don't want to say like faster chance, but like people who are more open to it, like have more to share and experience it more fully. That's how I've experienced it anyway. Which muscle testing you use? I use the ring and ring method. Although then, see, I was questioning myself because I've been doing it this way. And then I noticed on a video, the guy was doing it with the middle one. I was like, oh my gosh, am I doing it wrong? I'm like, no, it works just fine. Stop that. Use any fingers you want. So yes, I use the ring and ring method. If a behavior is tied to a behavior, if a behavior is tied to a behavior, does the behavior also change? I'm not, I'm like trying to, do you know what that means? I'm like, is it like, I was just thinking about like, they were talking about the like log, like when you, like one thing might lead to another, might lead to another. Oh, an emotion is tied to behavior. Okay. I was like, hold on. Now I'm going to go into my mind space here and I'm going to decode the puzzle. Okay, so if an emotion is tied to a behavior, does the behavior also change? And my experience is yes, it can, or yes, it does. And that's why like when I was personally working on my like food related issues, I released emotions around that. And then I stopped unconsciously going to snack. And I actually started bringing more awareness to that too. I noticed when I was doing something I wasn't really like passionate about or excited about or didn't want to be doing, I would avoid it and I'd be like, what's in the pantry? And so then like once I actually, it's like interesting because it's like what really started all of it, right? But then once that switched and that left my experience, like now I'm so fulfilled, I just naturally don't go, like it's just interesting. It's just like where does it all
Yep.
start? Um, I've also been wondering if it was placebo effect, but like fully believe it isn't. I mean, did it? Who is it? Like you are the placebo? Who says that? Is that Joe Dispenza?
Yeah, Joe
I'm not
Dispenza.
familiar with his work, but that book title always stands out. You are the placebo because you're the one powering everything. And so when I learned law of assumption, and Sam and I had kind of talked about this too, when we learned law of assumption, we're like, does that mean the energy healing work only worked because we believed in it? But I'm like, no, because like when I went into my Reiki attunement, I was like, I don't have a belief here nor there. I wasn't like this. Now I think if you're going in, you say this isn't gonna work, you might block it from working because your mind will make it so. But if you go in and just let it, just experience it without having a an assumption here or there and see what happens. It's yeah, that's interesting. I mean, everything. You are the placebo.
I mean, in my opinion, we put meaning to everything. So there's placebos and nocebos. So we put a positive meaning to everything and a negative meaning to everything.
Yeah.
I
There
think
is
of,
no placebo. Did you
a
just say there
nocebo.
is no placebo?
It's called a nocebo. It's the opposite of a placebo.
Oh,
So a placebo is like positive. The other one is the negative.
okay. Because I was like, you're onto something there. I was like, what if nothing is a placebo because we're always giving it a meaning? But I see. Okay.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
yeah, we are giving it a meaning. So if you think of belief and like, so they do those trials and experiments. So some people get the drug, other people don't get the drug, or they get the surgery, but they believe that they're getting something that's going to help them. They believe it. And so their mind's like, okay, it's working. And so then it works. And then the only time it stops working when people are like, oh, you were given the fake one. And so they go back to, oh, it didn't actually work. It was all in my head. But if you rewind and be like, because of your belief, your body changed. And
Yes. There was, I can't remember, now I can't remember where I read it. I was in a book, I think, and I'm like, I've read a few books, but I think it was a book or I heard it somewhere, but it was about this guy he had like stage 4 cancer or something like that. And they ran, do you know what I'm talking about? Was it a book?
Yeah, it was written by a female, and it was like I have the book upstairs, but I know but I know what you're talking about.
Was it by Caroline Miss? Oh, oh, you're like, don't ask me authors. Because I'm like, when you said female author, I'm like, oh, there was like, I read The Anatomy of the Spirit.
No,
And anyway, okay, I was like, I forgot about it. I read the book. Anyway, they were talking about how this person had like stage 4 cancer, and they basically said that they were going to die. So they're like, all right, we're gonna put you in this trial, and we're gonna give you this drug, and it's gonna, help this or something like that. But they gave him the placebo. So he took it, and his cancer went away. And then he saw a commercial because I guess they were like testing this for something else. And it said that they were doing tests with this drug and that it didn't work. It failed. And so as soon as he had the placebo and had been, healed by it. And as soon as he saw that, he was like, it didn't work. And so his cancer came back. And so then they called him back into the office and they said, we're going to try, it just wasn't a strong enough dose. So we're going to give you an extra more dosage of it. They still gave him the placebo and it went away again. And then I don't remember how like it ended up like saying it didn't work or something like that. And then it came back. He ended up passing away eventually of that. But it just showed like how the mind, like he was like, it worked. And then he saw a commercial that said it didn't work. And I was like, oh, it didn't work. And it changed everything. It was just super like, I was like, wow. So crazy.
yeah, it's in Dr. Joe's book. That example is in a lot of books. It's in a lot. And there's another one where a guy believed that this certain drug would help him. And he took it and it actually did help, like this incurable disease. And then they got rid of it. And so then it came back and the guy's like, I need this drug. I need this drug. So the guy pretended and said, oh yeah, here's this drug, but it was a placebo, and he felt better. And he was fully cured. And it was just like a sugar pill. The doctor lied to him. I was like, yeah, here you go. And it got rid of his disease.
He passed away because of that. So I don't think I've read any of Joe Dispenza's books yet. So it might be like a similar scenario, but I do actually remember reading something about where a doctor gave the person the timeline. And it's like, it's super like interesting. Like, this is why, I mean, always listen to your doctor, right? But if you hear something that you don't want to be true, you can, say, thank you very much. But you might be like, I reject that. No. I don't. And I did that when I was a kid, actually. And you look back and I'm like, wow, I was doing this when I was little and I didn't even realize. So when I don't even remember how old I was, but they were doing scoliosis checks, and they did a scoliosis check, and I remember they sent the paper home and they're like, your child has scoliosis. And I was like, I don't have scoliosis. I'm like, whatever. Never heard about it again after that. But I just decided I did not have scoliosis. And then, yeah, that was the end of that. It was just super funny because and that could have been from like, this is how your like limitations can serve you sometimes. I didn't want there to be anything wrong with me or for me to be different. So I'm like, I don't have it. No, Now, where did that stem from? If I didn't have that belief that I was so worried that there was something wrong with me, maybe I wouldn't have thought that. Who knows? Like, anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Me, 6 months and he died in the 6th month. He couldn't shake it. Yeah, it's super interesting. That's why some people, because they accept that as truth, and then there's people who are given that timeline and they don't accept it and they outlive that. I hear that all the time. It's just super like fascinating. And that's why there's no absolute truth. It's what you accept as truth for yourself. And if you've accepted a lot of things that you don't like or are unfavorable or not helping you right now or not part of the life you want to live, it can take some time to reprogram that belief, but you can do it. You can do it. You definitely can do it.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun. This will be posted on YouTube. It's going to be posted on mine, and we're going to figure out how to post it on Alicia's. So definitely follow My Spiritual Ocean. It's all of that on Instagram, YouTube. Do you have anything else? Instagram, YouTube, and obviously TikTok. But
I would say TikTok, but we're already here. So if you're here, you already know about that one. Yes. And if you're in my community and visiting and you're not following Sam, please follow her. She's amazing. Come to her Reiki lives. They are so fun and so relaxing.
Thank
or
you.
for me, energizing, depending on the day.
And then book club is now moved to Sunday mornings.
Yes. So I was doing a Monday night book club. Now it's going to be Sunday morning book club right here on TikTok Live around 11 a.m. Central Time. Right now we're reading Psycho-Cybernetics 2000, which is like a revitalization of the original Psycho-Cybernetics. So it'll be a grand old time.
All right, guys.
How do you join the book club? Just come on to the live. Just show up. Yeah, it's not like a membership or anything. I just come live on TikTok and you can join the live.
And
thanks for the gifts, everybody.
Voice is so soothing when you read. I always fall asleep. So I'm usually there at the beginning.
I had to switch book club.
What?
I had to switch book club to the morning because Sam falls asleep at book club. No, that's why I changed it. No, I didn't. It was just easier for me to do because I'm always live on Sundays anyway. So I'm like, Monday nights were just getting to be challenging for me. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been so much fun. And we'll see you all around the talk.
Yes. See you around. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank
yes.
you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.